On the 3rd of August 2016, I dropped out of university. 3 months later, I flew from Australia to Thailand. My primary aim was to investigate what living the digital nomad life was actually like. It's that lifestyle often advertised with a guy laying in a hammock on his laptop who makes $1 gazillion on autopilot whilst he travels the world. I also experienced culture shock, sensory deprivation, and a Vipassana meditation retreat. Here are the top 7 lessons I learned in Thailand. Lesson 1. I love roadworks. So Australians are just notorious for throwing fits when they get cut off, but also for complaining about constant roadworks. On my motorbike ride from Chiang Mai to Pai, I had never encountered so many cracks and potholes in my life. You never knew what was coming around the corner. It was also extremely common to see mountains of rubbish and plastic piled high on corner streets and decrepit curbs that hadn't been maintained for years. I haven't even mentioned the lack of traffic law enforcement, or that drink driving after a night of clubbing is common practice, and it's not rare to see kids packed on bikes without helmets. No wonder Thailand has the second highest amount of road fatalities per year, 6 times more than Australia. I was shocked at how clean and safe our roads were when arriving back home. I now have a huge appreciation for roadworks and law enforcement. The second lesson is to learn to say no without shame. On my first day in Bangkok, I stepped out of the hostel and was instantly approached by a dodgy Thai man driving a tuk-tuk. He hopped out and quickly walked over to me and introduced himself. For the next half an hour, he heckled me to pay for a ride on his tuk-tuk, despite me saying no thanks countless times. He even stalked me into a nearby library where I attempted to hide from him, but he wandered the aisles looking for me and kept coming in and out of the store. I was shocked a man would go to this much effort for 60 baht, which is about $2.30. So when I came out of the library, he had his tuk-tuk parked right in front of the entrance ready to go for me. I finally lost him by upping my assertiveness and walking briskly in the other direction without saying anything. This was a valuable lesson I learned for the rest of my trip. Lesson 3. It's easy to network with like-minded people. The first digital nomad I met was Travis, who I met through couchsurfing. Despite never having met this guy, we became buddies almost instantly, and we spent that day together apartment hunting in Chiang Mai. He hooked me up with his motorbike and invited me to do a public speaking gig to help other digital nomads grow their YouTube channels. Later, I met Travis's brother Aaron, Mihai, a web developer, and Delphim, a book publishing boss, and so many more. I even bumped into one of my subscribers. I was walking through the mall when he stopped me and he said, "Hey, you're Brandon from 1% Better, right?" So that was kind of weird, but turns out he was also from my home city, Adelaide, which made it even weirder. But we instantly connected. I'm not one to socialize much, but when I look back at my life, I've realized my strongest connections with people have always been due to sharing a common interest. I've made friends through Yu-Gi-Oh, unicycling, and now the digital nomad lifestyle. Moving on to the 4th lesson, 99% of nomads aren't relaxing in hammocks on sandy beaches earning money on autopilot. The majority come here with enough savings to last them a few weeks to a few months, and are at the very beginning stages of starting an online business. For the nomads who can afford the luxury of working on a sandy beach, well, the majority of them don't. By coming here, I found it's not where I am that matters, it's the people I'm with and the things I do. I couldn't give 2 hoots about working from my laptop on a sandy beach if I'm not spending time with friends and have no mission. Lesson 5. You are not your thoughts. So I attended a 10-day Vipassana meditation course at the Wat Pah Tem Wua Forest Monastery, basically in the middle of nowhere. The forest was beautiful. Vipassana means to see things as they really are. Here's what the daily schedule looked like. So at 5 AM we were meant to do morning chanting, but I didn't because it was mentally draining, so instead I journaled and read books. At 6:30 AM we had a rice offering to monks. At 7 AM we had breakfast. It was vegetarian, possibly vegan as well, so we had rice and Thai vegetables. At 8 AM we had a Vipassana meditation session at the main hall, where we would sit there and just watch our thoughts. At 10:30 AM we offered food to the monks, and at 11 AM we had lunch, which was more rice and more vegetables. At 1 PM we had another meditation session where we would lie down, and we'd also go on a walking meditation where we'd just watch and feel our bodies move rather than getting lost up, in our thoughts. At 4 p.m, we cleaned the monastery areas, so that involved sweeping for an hour and just being mindful, just being conscious and aware that we're sweeping the ground, which looks kind of stupid and sounds stupid, but it's something I think everyone should try. Just sweeping the floor for an hour and being mindful while you're doing it. You can also do this while you're doing the dishes. At 5 p.m, it was relax time, so we just had tea and coffee. For this period, I'm a bookworm, so I just read books. I had a small library there, and I just read tons of books. I reckon I read about 5 while I was there during my stay. At 6 p.m, evening chanting and meditation at Dharma Hall. So chanting, this was more on the Buddhist side of things rather than the mindfulness side of things. I wasn't really into the chanting, but yeah, basically what we did was sat in front of the Buddha statue and chanted, showing our gratitude for the Buddha or something like that. That's probably completely wrong, so if there's any Buddhists here, please correct me. 8 p.m, we had yet another meditation session where they'd switch off the lights, we'd all sit in a group, and we'd just meditate. We'd just watch our thoughts, see what our mind does. And at 10 p.m, that was lights out. During my stay, I followed the 5 Buddhist precepts, which are don't destroy living creatures, don't steal, no sex, no swearing, and no drinks or drugs. I voluntarily switched off my phone for the 10 days, which was challenging but rewarding. For the majority of my stay, we practiced mindfulness, which is simply being aware of our body and mind. This involved sessions where we would sit, walk, or lie down and just watch our body move and our thoughts happen. Apparently, if you practice this for years like the monks, you can reach a state of nirvana, which is considered the ultimate state of enlightenment. The biggest takeaway for me was being aware when I experience a bad emotion. Instead of trying to think my way out of it, which is mentally draining, I simply observe it. I also try to practice mindfulness when I go to the toilet or eat my food, because doing it for the whole day is mentally draining. Lesson number 6, how to get 8 hours sleep in 1 hour. On my second to last day, I decided to visit a float center thanks to a random TripAdvisor recommendation. I was intrigued. For $60, I could hop in a sensory deprivation tank, which would deprive me of all my senses. No hearing, no vision, no touch, no smell, nothing. The tank is filled with Epsom salt, which makes you float effortlessly. It's a really weird experience. I was excited to hop in as I'd heard about the benefits on the Joe Rogan Experience podcast. I switched off the lights, put my earplugs in and closed the latch. No dramas. So for the next 30 minutes, I struggled to get comfortable, but when I did, I eventually entered what I presume was the theta state. It's a trance-like state between wakefulness and sleep. It's extremely difficult to explain what I felt. Upon coming out, the biggest change I noticed was that I felt like I had slept for 8 hours. I was shocked, because the night before I actually didn't sleep. I didn't book a hostel, so I ended up watching the Cowspiracy documentary at a 24-hour gaming cafe until the next morning, so I was sleep deprived. The effects lasted for the rest of the day. Afterwards, I found out other people that reported the same thing. This is not a replacement for a real 8 hours sleep, but nonetheless, I can certainly see it as the ultimate power napping device. Floaters use tanks for other reasons such as reducing aches and pains, increasing athletic performance, and eliminating jet lag, and much more. Combining a float session with deep Vipassana meditation can also bring you into psychedelic states. The final lesson is to value experiences over possessions. I stayed in a very basic apartment. Some people joke about it and call it the prison cell for new nomads. But for me, it allowed me to stay in Thailand for a whole 2 months. It had just the basics I needed: a bed, a toilet, a sink, and a desk. The majority of my time was spent experiencing things outside of the apartment. I worked in various internet cafes, drove up mountains, hung out with friends, did public speaking gigs, and attended meetups. If I had opted for a 5-star hotel, I would have sacrificed 80% of my time and experiences in exchange for some extra luxuries. Tim Ferriss and James Altucher have inspired me to become minimalist. Now let's review the 7 lessons we covered in this video. I love roadworks, learn to say no without shame, it's easy to network with like-minded people, 99% of nomads aren't relaxing in hammocks on sandy beaches earning money on autopilot, you are not your thoughts, how to get 8 hours sleep in 1 hour, and value experiences over possessions.